Hello, Psych2Go viewers. Our guest for today's live stream is Dr. David Colarossi, host of the highly entertaining channel Pop Psych, where he discusses and analyzes different reality TV shows, movies, and celebrities. Dr. Colarossi is also a licensed psychologist with an MA in marriage and family therapy from the University of Southern California and a PhD in counseling psychology from the University of Denver. Dr. Colarossi also works as a corporate psychologist, consultant, and executive coach. Welcome, David. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. That was a very good intro. I appreciate it.
Of course. I'm so excited
here.
No, of course. Yeah. And I'm such a huge fan of the channel. I think that you're doing amazing work. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm excited to discuss the topic, which is psychology of celebrity worship in the age of social media. The internet and social media has become so ingrained in our daily lives, and it's really changed the way we view others, especially celebrities. The internet and social media have made it so much easier to take a glimpse into their lives. And for many people, they feel like they almost know their favorite or not so favorite celebrities on a personal level. So first off, my question for you is, what do you think are some of the psychological reasons why people become so emotionally attached to celebrities, even though they've never met them before? And what do you think is the implication of this?
I think it's a good question. So I think there's a lot of implications. From a psychological standpoint, I think it's the perception of vulnerability. So I think that the celebrities that are the stickiest as far as having an audience and people wanting to listen to them and follow them, and the people that you really connect to, I think there's the perception that they are being transparent about their lives. And I think that is, if you think about anybody you have a close relationship with, it's always because at some level, because of vulnerability. Either they share a lot about themselves, either you've been through something serious, or you have history, all of which sort of, at the end of the day, is transparency and vulnerability. And with social media, people are able to share what they want about their lives, but they share it in a way that comes across as transparent. And like think about the Kardashians or Vanderpump Rules or any of those, they're clearly highly produced, but the perception is that you're really getting a unique view into this person's life. And I think that the fact that there's that vulnerability there, that's why it's sticky. That's why people are interested. Does that make sense?
That. Yeah, like they can connect with that. It's relatable. It resonates.
Yes. And I think from a psychological standpoint, there's a lot of reasons why we are interested in that. If you think about a much smaller society, if we were a group of 20 people, it's really important that we know everybody that we live with, right? But if you go back years and years and years, and we're in a tribe, it's important for us to know within our tribe or our clan who is everybody, and it would be a social skill or a skill for survival to be able to listen to people, be interested in people, and learn about them and their intentions. So I think we are, like, from an evolutionary standpoint, built to be gossipy in that way.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't serve us as well, but now it shows up in Vanderpump Rules, and we want to learn everything we can about the different Toms. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Scandival, hashtag.
Yes.
In recent years, due to social media, the concept of celebrity has been redefined. In the past, qualifying as a celebrity usually meant being an actor, an actress, musician, an athlete, or a super famous politician. So it's definitely changed in recent years. However, we're living in an age where social media has made it possible for anyone to be a celebrity or a social media influencer. In many ways, people aren't just obsessed with celebrities anymore. They are obsessed with becoming a celebrity. So looking at it from both sides, in what ways is that something positive, and in what ways is it destructive, especially as it pertains to a person's mental health?
Yeah, that's a big question. So I on the first question, I didn't answer what's the implication of that. And I think it ties into your second question, which is, I think that our obsession with celebrity can be negative in the sense that everything is so artificial. So obviously it's easy to create an unrealistic standard of existence. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on the viewer, on the audience. I also think that I think, and this fits with your second question here, when anybody can be a celebrity, when anybody has a microphone, when anybody is listened to, it's not always easy to vet your sort of circle. You've probably heard that you are, whatever the saying is, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with most. And I think in some ways it's really beneficial if you are, if you are a disenfranchised individual and you can go on and you can find people that motivate you, people that who inspire you, people that you can be like, and you work towards that, then it's wonderful. But if you pick the wrong person because you're not really able to vet these 5 people now that are all, virtual, then I think it can derail people's psychological development in a really significant way. So the example I would give would be the Kardashians. They are obvious people. They're obviously very entertaining. People want to watch them. But if you look at their individual lives, if I said, would you want to be Khloe Kardashian and everything that she's been through, her sort of psychological well-being, right? I think a lot of people would say, I don't want the infidelity. I don't want the divorces. I don't want the body image issues. I don't want I don't want a lot of things. Right. But we're listening to that content. And I think it can distort how we see ourselves and how we show up. That was a long-winded answer. Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. Like, people kind of want the glamour, but they don't really want all the baggage that does come with being famous.
Yeah. And I don't know that because people can control what they put on the internet, especially people that have the resources to do so, they can paint a really unfair picture of what's actually happening.
Exactly. Like, it can be manipulated.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier, fame and celebrity has been redefined by the presence of social media. If someone goes viral, even if it's for something terrible, they can become a celebrity overnight. Lately, there's been a trend of giving significant media attention to con artists and controversial figures such as the Tindler Swindler, Anna Delvey, Elizabeth Holmes, and so many others. In a sense, due to celebrity worship, do you think that the media tends to unintentionally reward these individuals who commit atrocious acts, such as making Netflix documentaries about them and so on? I mean, for example, Anna Delvey got paid for the recent Netflix documentary that was made about her. So do you think that this almost enables and emboldens them?
I would never have thought about it that way until you said that. But yeah, I think the media does a major disservice if you think about school shootings. And they've changed a little bit where they're slower to put people's names out there. But still, if people don't have a strong sense of self and they're just looking for some amount of attention, they're looking to have some kind of impact on the world, it's easier in many ways to do that if you are provocative, right? You are, like, I think a good example would be, and I don't mean it in a negative way, but like Jake Paul is the one that I think about, who has, I think, harnessed virality in a really empowering and impactful way for him. But what he does is just be super, super, super provocative. I could go out right now and do something very extreme and I'm going to get media attention. And if I know how to do that in a way that keeps me out of jail, I'm going to keep getting more and more popular. And so I do think that there's less attention being given to people that are making good decisions, that are thoughtful, that are nuanced. And so, yeah, I think it probably does empower people to sort of pursue fame in any way, right? And I think that yeah, I think that's probably a problem. I hadn't really thought about it until you said it.
Yeah, like it just, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, sorry to interrupt you. Did you watch, there was a show on Netflix called The Most Hated Man on the Internet? It was this guy named Hunter. I can't remember what his name was. I did a reaction video to him. It was the revenge porn guy.
I think I've heard of it. I think I've heard of it. Yeah.
So this guy starts this website called, I forget what I don't know what the website is, but he created some website where people could go on there and put nude pictures of their exes on there. And he became exceptionally popular for doing this. And he's absolutely violating the rights of all of these people whose pictures are on the internet. This Netflix documentary comes out. I do a reaction video, and then people start contacting me. Like, they got my phone number and reached out and go, he's still doing it. They go on to Discord. There's a whole Discord group around it. And there's this audience of people that could watch the documentary, that could be I think it was called Up All Night or something was the website, but could watch this, see this horrific thing happening, and they're validating of it, and they want to be a part of it, and it's fringe enough that they're diving into it. And so I think what happens is not only are people emboldened by the attention in general, but because the internet is so big, so vast, you can always find your audience. There's always people that are going to be supportive of whatever it is that you're doing. And so Hunter's walking around thinking, I'm still the man. I did a good thing. Look how I'm a hero to all of these people. He doesn't recognize that the segment of the population that supports him is very, very, very small, right? But he's got a full Discord and a Reddit feed and all these things that validate him.
Exactly. Like the internet has made it so that you could find your community and your niche. And like before that, you couldn't do that, but you could find people who are anonymous, but will like agree with maybe the depraved things you're doing, but they're anonymous, so they can go out there and like, do what you're doing. Like a lot of people, how it is. Yeah, exactly. So I definitely agree with that. And that's not something I thought about before. And guys, I just wanted to let the Psych2Go viewers know, please ask your questions because we'll be answering them at the end of the live. So thank you. And then, so do you think it has a psychological impact on younger people especially? And do you think it can influence them to try to emulate the actions of negative role models who are seeing others become extremely famous on social media? Like, do you think it has an even worse impact on our younger generation?
Yeah, I think YouTube is I'm on YouTube, and I think it's a problem in that, well, it's good. So like to answer the first part of the question, is it is valuable. I like the fact that you can be whatever you want to be. And I think because you can find your audience, the individual is empowered. I think that's wonderful. I also feel like because YouTubers have gotten so good at capturing the attention of their audience, so good at it's like finding ways to give dopamine hit after dopamine hit after dopamine hit, that the audience sort of thinks this is the best thing ever. They struggle to wait and listen and learn. They struggle to find nuance. They just want to be entertained right now. And I think that part of it is problem in particular for younger audiences. And then I worry about, not only does it change the way that they listen and learn, but I think it also might impact who they want to be. If I look at Mr. Beast and that's what I want to be, and I think about like, I'm going to do all these big, crazy things back to back to back to back, I worried that it sets up unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, exactly. And so you think the instant gratification of social media is almost becoming like an addiction for a lot of like younger people?
Yeah. I think for a lot of reasons, and I was saying like the way the content's being created, like certainly if you, like I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, they would far rather watch YouTube videos than something on Netflix. Anything that Netflix is doing is too long. They want a 3-minute video that's like, it feels addictive to them. You take it away they take the iPad from them and they're pissed. Like it really has an impact. I think the opposite argument could be made that this is the direction that the world is going. And I imagine in 10 years, in 20 years, people that can shift topics of focus really quickly will probably be rewarded for that because things will move at that kind of a pace.
Yeah.
So it's probably it's sort of unavoidable. It's our reality and we have to find a way to live within it. But as a parent, I get concerned about my kids on YouTube.
Yeah, I see it with my own niece and my nephew, like they just always have to be on their iPad.
Yeah.
So it's true.
Yeah.
And so
have you heard, sorry to interrupt you. Have you seen, if you turn your phone to grayscale, have you heard about doing this? And it changes, like it is stimulating. It's stimulating to see all the colors. Like even the phone itself is addictive.
Oh,
if you
yeah.
turn, if you can, I don't know if you can see, if you turn it to grayscale,
Mhm.
you can't, it's way less addictive. Like just the colors
I
itself
bet.
draw you in.
And exactly, colors are used in marketing. Like, McDonald's, In-N-Out, they use the color red specifically because they know, I don't know if it makes people hungry or what it does.
Yeah.
It captures their attention, but color is like extremely important in like the psychology of marketing. So it is scary because social media does have such a hold on our society now. And maybe it is an addiction and it's, it is scary in that way. And
Yeah.
so looking at it from a more psychological standpoint, I came across this interesting research study called the absorption addiction model, which was proposed by researcher Lynn McCutcheon, yeah, which theorizes that individuals who tend to obsess over celebrities and absorb information about their personal lives are attempting to compensate for their insecurities or lack of personal identity or lack of meaningful relationships. Do you feel like there's any truth to this model or this research?
So I don't know. I've not read it, but my
Mhm.
gut reaction would be no, I don't agree. So
Hmm.
I would wonder, like, how would they possibly, unless they're going there and they're saying what, they'd have to say, what is your favorite TV show? Then they'd have to psychologically profile the characters in that show. Then they have to ask the audience, what are your, not just what limitations do you think you have, but what, like from a psychological standpoint, what limitations do we think you have? It seems
Hmm.
like a rough research project to be able to actually prove that out. And
Hmm.
I think that a lot of times people like media because it agrees with them. I'm not sure that you're always picking people, or I'm not sure you're always following people um, that point. Or so the view is that if you like a certain kind of media, it's because, say that again, it's because my
Yeah.
limitations are duplicated by that person.
No, I guess what the model is saying is that people who become over obsessed with celebrities, like
Yeah.
extremely obsessed and invested in their personal lives, it's because somehow they're lacking in their own personal life and they're lacking in their personal relationships. So it's almost like they live vicariously
Vicarious
through
through.
yeah, through the
Okay. So it's
celebrity.
not okay. So it's they're not saying it's a personality issue. They're saying it's a relationship issue.
Yeah,
They're living that excitement through.
a celebrity, exactly.
Okay, I'll say okay, but I would think it's because here's why I'm pushing back on it is because I think
Mm,
it's any kind of entertainment is escapism, right? If you look at,
yeah.
you could say the same thing probably. People that like Monday Night Football, they must not have a lot going on Monday night if they're watching Monday Night Football. So like at
Mhm,
some level, you're choosing this entertainment, even though it brings no direct value to your life, even though it's not in your life, you're choosing this because it's more fun than your actual existence. Like, I don't know that that's
mhm.
exactly celebrity, but you could say things if you like, why do you like movies? Why do you like whatever it is that you're any kind of sport? You know what I'm saying? So I guess
Yeah.
it feels extreme. I understand where
Mhm.
they're coming from. Like if I'm obsessed with somebody else, I must not like myself, but I just don't know if there's really data to support that. I'd have to see the study.
Mhm. Exactly, but, like, there's this new trend on well, it's been kinda going on for a few years, but with social media that now you can be a social media impersonator, like, girls who will dress up as Ariana Grande, and they'll
Uh-huh.
just impersonate her, and they become famous off of that, like, they become that impersonator, and that their whole identity becomes Ariana Grande or Rihanna or Beyoncé, they're
Yeah.
impersonating them, so in a way, there's some maybe validity to it, but, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how much, but in some ways.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I have a negative reaction to it, but I think it does make, the more you explain it, the more I would say like it makes sense. I would just stop short of, or I'd be nervous about sort of profiling people that like, I'm not
Exactly.
sure that everybody that likes Ariana Grande
Mhm.
necessarily has a deficit in their own social life.
That's true,
You know what
yeah,
I'm
it's maybe,
saying?
like, people who over obsess, but even then, it's hard to, like, diagnose someone, right? I agree with that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
kind of why I'm pushing back on it.
No, I completely understand, like, it's always more complex than what we see on the surface.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. And so TikTok is probably the biggest social media platform at the moment, and the prevalence of influencers is as ubiquitous as ever. So, generally speaking, what do you think is the negative impact of society's desire, like generally speaking, society's desire to be famous? And do you think it has anything to do with narcissism?
I don't know that it has. I think it can lead to narcissism. So I think, and I've done this I've talked about this like ad nauseum on my YouTube channel.
Mhm.
The term triggered, narcissist, and gaslight are so overused. It drives me crazy.
Oh my
It just
god.
drives me
True.
nuts. So, so there are real narcissists out there. That is a personality disorder. It is a pervasive pattern of behavior. It is a real deal, significant diagnosis that impacts multiple areas of somebody's life. I think what happens oftentimes is we throw the term out and we go, okay, so and so is selfish, so then they're a narcissist. My ex was selfish, so they're a narcissist, right? So I don't know necessarily that everybody that is a narcissist is going to be obsessed with social media. I do think that narcissism, if you are constantly thinking about your brand and your reputation, it's an outlet for selfishness, which I think can feed into narcissism. Does that make sense? So I guess it's such a selfish endeavor, anything that you do on social media. So even in my case, I'm not taking myself out of this. I am sitting there talking to a camera, just me and the camera. I'm putting it on there, and then I'm watching people react to me. Like, it is a very selfish experience.
Yeah.
But it's like that's like the continuum of, does it lead to narcissism, or do narcissists like it? Maybe. But I would tell you that the vast majority of people are not narcissists. They're
That's
just
such a
maybe self-interested. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's like the perfect way of putting it. Like, just because someone isn't necessarily narcissistic because they like social media, and just because you don't use social media doesn't mean you're not a narcissist. I
Right,
totally get
right.
what you're saying. And people sometimes
Yes.
try to link the two. And I think that's dangerous. Like, just because someone likes to post selfies or be on social media has nothing to do with
Mhm.
narcissistic personality disorder. And I do think it gets thrown out there too often.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that our generation's obsession with celebrities contributes to people's body image and self-esteem issues, such as like eating disorders and body dysmorphia to a certain extent?
In a significant way, I think so. I think that and I think that there's research showing like the what people are attracted to has shifted over the years as different celebrities have become popular. And then it is really clear. You can look in different cultures. There are certainly, symmetry, things like that everybody finds attractive, but there are body types that are differently attractive in different cultures based on what's pumped out through the media. And I really think with Photoshop, I think there's really irresponsible influencers that distort reality for people. And it absolutely, if you are insecure, if you're not well grounded, and you are consuming hours and hours of people on the beach whose bodies have been modified via Photoshop, it's damaging. I
Of
think,
course. Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. It's damaging.
Hmm.
I completely agree with that. And do you think that sometimes like people will follow celebrities that maybe not, like maybe it stems from a trauma or a mental health issue, such as like, an eating disorder or body dysmorphia?
I think you can get. I think it can feel. What's the right word? I'll just describe it. I think it can feel. It can feel like things are. You can resonate with somebody that says the bad, or that shows the bad things about you that you feel. If I feel really terrible, and then I listen to someone tell me how terrible I am, there's part of that that feels like consistent and coherent and linear. Like, yeah, I'm a bad person, and you're telling me I'm a bad person, and that this is where I should be. Does that, you know what I mean? It can feel like
Yeah.
home a little bit, but
Yeah,
that home
comforting.
can be comforting, and maybe is the right word, but that home is a really terrible place. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? And so I do think that there is some of that goes on. I mean, people respond to trauma in so many different ways. Not everybody does that. Some people try to
Of
ignore
course.
what they feel about themselves and do the opposite. But I think there's definitely a role that it plays.
Yeah,
For sure.
definitely. And so is this the line where you feel like celebrity worship crosses from harmless to dangerous?
Yeah, I think celebrity worship crosses that line, I guess, in two ways. I think it crosses the line when you have celebrities that are insincere, and when a celebrity lies, I think it's a real about what's going on in their life, if that's what they're selling, and how they look. If that's what they're selling, I think it's a real problem. So that I started doing YouTube because of, I don't know if did you ever follow Dave and Rachel Hollis? Do you know who
Mm,
they are?
I'm not.
They're a couple of motivational speakers. Rachel Hollis wrote a book, Girl Wash Your Face, became super popular. Then her husband, who was a Disney executive, sort of joined her team, and they had a podcast together, and they talked about how close they were. And we have an exceptional relationship. And they're saying they have an exceptional relationship on one week, and then the next week they get divorced. And it was a very like sort of like clearly a departure from reality, and people are listening to them thinking, I need to have a marriage like that. I think that when that happens, that worship is irresponsible and causes problems. The same thing if a Kardashian is out there saying, this is what my body looks like, when they've had 15 people work on it through surgery, makeup artists, and then a Photoshop artist. I think that causes problems.
Exactly, because people think that's reality and that
Yeah,
they
and it
should be that
distorts.
way.
Yeah, if you're, I think it's anything like even violent video games. There's a lot of debate about if it's good or it's bad, but I think it makes a difference if the person playing the game is grounded in reality, if they have a reasonable self-esteem, if they have a healthy environment, then Grand Theft Auto doesn't have a negative effect. But if the
Mhm.
kid playing doesn't know who they are, then that causes it's going to have a different effect, you know?
Exactly. And I think sometimes people underestimate that. They think that, like, no, well, you're your own person. It's not going to affect you, but it can. People who are
I
more
think,
susceptible.
yeah, I think it absolutely can affect you.
And then
Absolutely.
looking at it from the other side, I mean, sometimes, like I was mentioning a lot about how celebrity and fame affects society, but looking at it from the other side, do you think that society's fascination with the self-destruction of celebrities, such as someone like Kanye West, do you think that's like, what do you think? Where do you think that stems from, and where's the danger in that?
I think it stemmed first. So first of all, I thought the way the media handled Kanye West was disgusting. I mean, this is a guy that, in my opinion, not even my opinion, just anybody looking at this that knows anything about mental health will look at him and go, he's bipolar. Like he is in a manic episode. This is a time for us to support him. This is a time for him to get help. This is not a time for TMZ to shove a camera in his face and ask him about different marginalized communities. Like that is not. And TMZ or whoever the guy is with the camera knows exactly what they're doing and they don't care. And so I thought it was just a sort of a disgusting display, to be honest with you. And I think that the reason why we do that, the reason why TMZ puts the camera in his face is because people are jealous. People are, it's hard to look at someone who is super successful. We like it when they're getting better and better. We like when someone's growing, but we like it more when they fall because it tells us that we are better than that person. There were a lot of people who felt like Kanye West was superior to them, that felt like they could never be as successful as Kanye West. And they didn't like the fact that it's like Will Smith. People like the fact that you have this guy that is sort of like the model superstar. He falls and you go, look, you're not any better than me. And there is an empowerment when you can say you're not any better than me. And I think we unfortunately love that.
I agree with that. Like society sometimes, some people, not everyone, but there are people who do like they feel happy when they see that, and it's funny and it's a spectacle, even
Uh-huh.
though it's so much more than that. This is someone dealing with a mental health issue, and we
Yeah.
should care. But some people, they find enjoyment out of it,
Yeah.
or they
Yeah.
get enjoyment out of it. I completely agree with that. Um, and do you think it's possible to diagnose celebrities on TV or in the media from afar? If not, what is the implication of it?
It's not possible. So it's funny because people, because I'm always reacting to popular culture events and people always want to know what's the diagnosis. And I always try to be really careful about giving diagnoses. And when I do, what I usually say is based on what I have seen. Like I will talk about narcissism or bipolar or whatever it is I'm trying to educate about what the diagnostic criteria are and maybe what we're seeing, but I try to stop short of saying, I know that this person has this, right? So I can look at Kanye West and I can say he's bipolar only because Kanye West has come out before and said, I'm bipolar, been diagnosed
Yeah,
as bipolar.
exactly.
I can look at his behavior and go, I mean, I get why it's not a leap to get there, but
Right.
diagnoses have a they're very nuanced between clinicians. They're nuanced, and I think that there's value in somebody with my background communicating, hey, here's how I would think about X, Y, and Z. I don't know that there's much value in me saying this person's that way, right? So for example, on Sister Wives, I started off and I said, I do not think that, based on what I have seen, I don't think that Cody Brown is a narcissist. And people were
Mhm.
like outraged that I hadn't diagnosed him that way.
Mhm.
And then I watched the last whole season. I said, okay, So here's what has changed. And based on what I've seen, I would give, he does meet that diagnostic criteria based on what I've seen. But I am only seeing a highly curated picture of him via TLC or Discovery Communications, right? So I think we have to be really careful about that.
Yeah.
As people that are reacting.
And it would be, like, you're not just gonna give into what the audience says, like, okay, yeah, he's a narcissist, right? Like, you have an ethical responsibility. You're not just gonna do that,
Yes, yes,
because
yes.
the audience wants you to say he's a narcissist. Like, that's not, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm. It is really interesting to me how motivated, at least my audience, is to get definitive labels. Like, people want to bucket. We want to simplify celebrities. I want to know that this person is this way and that person is that way, and tell me exactly what that diagnosis is, right? People struggle with nuance. We struggle with, hey, in this situation, she's going to do well, and right now she's doing well, but over here she's not doing. People struggle with that. And as someone who's reacting to popular culture, I struggle with, how do I communicate the nuance in a way that's digestible?
Exactly.
It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and I mean, this is kind of a digression, but, like, Cody Brown, I think that he triggers people so much because a lot of people maybe have a Cody Brown in their life, and they see that person in Cody and they feel so, like, triggered. I think that Cody is just very triggering to a lot of people.
I think he is too. And he
Yeah.
has, it's funny. So I started going back and watching from season 1. He has definitely evolved, like, in a
Mhm.
negative way, I think. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? I
yes,
think that
absolutely.
speaking of somebody about just the exposure to the media, I think it has changed how I think he was always self-interested, no question. But I think, 12 years of being told you are, the top polygamist in the world, or whatever narrative he's got in his mind, I think has created this sort of monster that's, I think, in many ways emotionally abusive to his spouse, to his wives, treats his kids horribly. I mean, he's
Yep.
super triggering from, like, an individual level, as a husband and partner, and
Mhm.
as a father. In each of those areas, he's triggering for people.
Exactly,
You
like,
know,
just seeing how he treats, because he has a
yeah,
big family too,
yeah.
so
So there's lots of, like, everybody relates to somebody. You know what I mean?
right?
Yeah.
So, do you think that our society's obsession with reality TV stars like Sister Wives, the Kardashians, social media influencers will ever truly fade away, or is it a part of our culture that's here to stay?
I think it's here to stay. I
Really?
really think that it's here to stay because people like things that are real. What I think is not here to stay, like, I think that Sister Wives, 90 Day Fiance, um, uh, Love Is Blind, like that style where it's less orchestrated, less produced, I think is here to stay. I think the Kardashians and Vanderpump Rules, I imagine that will fade off. To me, it's much more engaging for people to feel like they're actually getting the truth out of people. And
Mhm.
I think those highly produced shows feel less truthful, so they're less sticky for an audience member. By the way,
Exactly.
that's my opinion, and I think Vanderpump and Kardashians are way more popular than the other shows I mentioned. So I'm not a media expert, but that's my, at least as a viewer, I imagine that's the direction things would go.
Yeah, I can kinda see that, even though people kinda see the Kardashians as, like, the first family of the US.
I know.
Right?
Which
But I could see
it
that.
just drives me crazy, by the way. I have tried to react to the Kardashians, and Vanderpump Rules is so popular right now, and they've got a big finale coming up. It's coming up on the 17th, and I was like, okay, I need to watch the entire last season.
Yeah.
Michelle, I think 4 times I've tried to watch Vanderpump Rules.
It's
I cannot get into it.
vapid.
It is beyond vapid. And then, like, I
Yeah.
wanna look at him and I wanna be like, "Hey, like, this Tom Sandoval, do you know,
Yeah.
he's so immature." Like, I'm sitting there going, like, You're 40." He's like
I
39 or
know.
40 years. He's my age, and acting like
Exactly.
that.
It's so
I
weird, like,
just
they
it's
act like
hard for me to get. Yeah.
teenagers. But you do know
Yeah.
their ratings were actually really bad up until the scandal. Like, the show was actually going downhill, like, the ratings were really bad, and this
Oh, really?
propelled it. So they weren't actually that
Wow.
popular the last couple of years, but then this scandal, it was, like, so huge that their ratings are up now, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I do not understand it. I
Right?
cannot get. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So now we're going to move to the audience question segment. So the first one I have here is from Jennifer. So, Dr. David, do you believe that our media exploits the mental illness of celebrities?
100%. I think in a big way, I think our media exploits anything that it can. And so I think it's really difficult. It's just human nature to want to know what's going on with people. And I think mental illness fits into that vulnerability bucket, and it fits into that provocative bucket. And the media doesn't care. Like Kanye West is a good example. The
Mhm.
media doesn't, or Britney Spears, the media doesn't care what's the psychological effect on Kanye or on Britney. Could care less.
Exactly.
They just want ratings, and I think so. It leads to a lot of exploitation.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with you. I mean, our sometimes we don't see it from like sometimes our society doesn't have as much empathy for the celebrity side of it.
Yeah, and I think I mean, I know that society's view is, well, you chose to be a celebrity, so this is your sort of penance for that. But I just think that's a really immature view. People chose to be celebrities in whatever their specific area is. They didn't choose to be sliced and diced by the media, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. And so Travis is asking, do you think that celebrities like the Kardashians have actually had a positive impact on our society in any way?
Mm, the Kardashians? I mean, I think, I am not a major viewer of the Kardashians.
Mhm.
Um, I would struggle to see what the positive. I think that there was a period where they were good. But this is like they've been on for what is it, 15 years or 20 years, some crazy number.
15 years. And they
Fif-
were
some-
kind of known before that too because of
yeah,
Robert Kardashian. Mhm.
yeah. When they first came out, I remember thinking that they were good for body image because they weren't saying you have to be rail thin. I think that the ship has sailed on that in a really negative way, where they all look fake to me, and fake. I think fake, especially when you're not communicating that it's fake, is really damaging.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And then Joel has a question, a really good question. Dr. David, what is the most important thing about social media that you would change?
That's a good question. What would I change about it? I would change how the algorithm. I mean, in a perfect world, I would change how the algorithm works so that provocative doesn't isn't weighted more than more substantive work. So, for example, I have a pop psych YouTube channel, which is just me reacting to popular culture, which is my favorite channel. I put the most effort into it, but
Mm.
I'm reacting to popular culture. I have another channel that's just called David Colarossi, PhD,
Mhm.
and it's a little bit more of a serious channel. I'm talking about, like, I did a video on the overuse of the word triggered, or on impact versus intent. And those, like my pop psych videos, a sister wife video will get 50,000 views,
Mhm.
and a video on triggered will get 200 views.
Mm.
And it's just because what I'm talking about requires more attention. It's not as provocative. And so it gets no. And so I think it's really hard as a creator to put out content that is substantive when you really just know that I just need to be flamboyant about something. Back to the Jake Paul thing, I can be, I can bring a gigantic robot to a boxing match, and I'm going to get a lot more views because of that. I think that I don't know how you get right. That's how the algorithm works. Of course, what people click on and what they watch, they're going to feed you more of that. But I wish it wasn't that way. That
Exactly.
was a
It can be
long-winded
kinda
answer,
hard.
but yeah,
No,
it's
it's
a
perfect.
yeah. So I work really hard. So if you look at my sister wives videos, what I try to do is I will talk about whatever the episode is, and then I always try to bring in some more serious discussion about from a psychological standpoint that I think is valuable to the audience versus it
Yeah.
just being gossipy. Like I try to. It's a little bit like hiding your vegetables in the dessert. Like that's
Yeah,
kind of how I think about it, because the
exactly.
algorithm pumps out that stuff so much more.
Exactly. And what I like about your videos too, I was watching one the other day. You like observe something and you like we'll talk about it. And it's like I didn't even notice that like Cody's dancing at the wedding. You noticed how like it was very flamboyant, kind of, and I didn't even
Yeah.
notice that it was kind of narcissistic. I just thought, oh,
Oh
it's
my
just
gosh.
dancing.
I yeah, yeah.
Exactly, right? So like little
It's
things like that.
yeah, it's amazing when I look at my comments how many I mean, a lot of people see different things that I don't see either. You know what I mean? It's like you
Mhm,
said, that show or any show strikes everybody differently, and it is amazing to
mhm.
see how many people notice things like that
Yeah,
watching those episodes.
exactly. And then Evie has a question. What's your take on horror movies and video games played by children since their maturity ratings are way up there? Should that be up to the parents or no? Should just children be able to play video games as they'd like?
I would be in the camp of give the parents the ability to judge what their kids
Mhm.
consume. You know, I would I it feels draconian, I think, to all of a sudden say, you know, the government gets to decide at what age your kid can do what. That said, as a parent, I wouldn't want my kid watching, you know, or playing mature video games at a young age. So I think the concern is reasonable. I just wouldn't want to disempower the parents.
Exactly. Like they should have some like say in
Mhm.
it, but some people feel like strongly about that you shouldn't like I don't know.
Well, the issue is that there is, you know, like anything in parenting, there's no ability for us to evaluate who's a good or a bad parent. And you know, it's like you can't disempower the parents that you think aren't doing a good job and empower the ones you think, right? You can't control that. So I think like you
Mhm.
have to empower all parents. But some are more thoughtful about what their kids consume than others, you know, and you have
Yeah,
to
no,
just,
I
yeah.
completely agree. And then Philip asks, it's going to be our last question. What is the panel's opinion on how algorithms are negatively or positively shaping Western culture? Is this more of a Western, culture's issue, in your opinion, with social media and celebrity worship?
Oh, I do not have a good answer for that. I don't know. I think that I would argue that the algorithm definitely influences how we think, um, in a big way in our culture. I don't know enough about other cultures to weigh in on it, but I guess I will add that, which I think is an interesting from a psychological standpoint. You know, we are. I feel like humans are. I'll use the word, you know, like cultish, or we want to, not cultish is maybe the wrong word, but we want to be in groups. We want to feel like we are connected to people. And so what that means is that when you interact with somebody, you are going to find a way to verbalize whatever your views are to sort of tell them, hey, here's the group. You know, I belong in this group, or I belong in your group. And what happens is, I think, on social media is that people want to demonstrate their belonging with a particular group, and so they get more and more extreme. And so when people would normally be pretty similar in their views, if you track the algorithm or what's shared with you on social media, you're getting progressively more and more extreme views. I think just because people want to say, "Hey, I'm on this team." And you know, you have to get more and more extreme to get the attention of the algorithm, to tell the algorithm what group you belong in. And so if you look at just if I look at my feed, there's like really extreme views from everybody. No one ever says, hey, it's a little bit of that and a little bit of this. It's never a somewhere in the middle. It's always this guy's the worst and this guy's the best. You know, it's a so I think it distorts how we think.
This is my question, but do you think social
Yeah.
media and YouTube maybe attracts more passionate about people about these issues? Because I know people who would never hop on a YouTube comment section. Like they
Yes.
would never be caught dead doing, like my sister.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I think so. I think I
Mhm.
mean, YouTube does, I think Reddit does, which is really I like people, or I admire people, I don't care what it is, that are all in on things, that participate fully in life. Like I'm attracted to that kind of a person. And
Mhm.
so for me, if people like when going onto Reddit, Reddit is not the forum that I would ever use to talk about an issue. But if I go onto
Mhm.
Reddit, I can read people that are so impassioned about every it's like
Yeah.
anything, and they have so much to say. And I think it's a wonderful outlet for people. And if we didn't have YouTube or Reddit or these platforms, I think people just sit with their thoughts and don't share them. And so I like that part of it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like a release. It is, helpful to some degree. Definitely
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah.
And so now, just turning to our last segment, the importance of mental health awareness, since May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Just some quick questions. How can we eliminate the stigma around mental health?
I think there's a lot of things that we could do differently about it. I think, of course, talking about it. I think that's talking about it and not in a judgmental way, I think is really important. I also think from a celebrity standpoint, I wish that there's been so many examples. I'm thinking of Dave Hollis. I'm thinking of Tony Hsieh. And I feel like whenever a celebrity dies as a result of suicide or or overdose, the media's initial reaction is to not tell you what happened, and then they wait like 6 months to say, "Oh, here's what happened," and by that point, the attention is off of it. And I really wish that, and I know it's not the family's responsibility. I don't know how you fix it, but I wish that when something happened that was catastrophic, I wish that the media was transparent about this is what happened, and this can happen. This is a prevalent, significant issue, and you should take it seriously. And I feel like we allow celebrity allows us to distort mental illness as it's something that is not that significant or doesn't happen much, or we sort of push it to the side. So when people feel it, they don't think it's as prevalent as it is. You know what I mean? And we sort of minimize the severity, which I think is a problem. Like I wish we would talk about it more. And when there were celebrities that had mental illness, I wish they would talk about it in a more transparent way. And I just gonna get on a soapbox. Can I say one more thing about that? I also really struggle with celebrities that I feel like, and I'm not going to name them, but there's several right now that I think are very vocal about their mental illness, and I feel like they do it in a very self-aggrandizing, attention-seeking manner that's also insincere, which drives me freaking crazy. I just want
Exactly.
real, and I think we
And
don't do
people
real
can
very well.
see through that. People can
Yeah,
see
I
through that.
hope, I hope so. Yeah,
Some.
but I think the thing I think things like that should be just treated more carefully than they are.
Exactly, because it is, like, more complex, and, I
Mhm.
mean, celebrities do have a responsibility to a certain degree, so and then I guess last question, to wrap it up, what is the best self-care advice for someone struggling with mental health issues that you would give?
Go to a therapist, and what I would add to it is be a good, be a discerning user of therapy. I think the thing that because I used to work as a therapist, and I will tell you, and and right now as an executive coach, it's the same thing. Our job, the mental health professional's job, like I would argue 99% of our job is to make the participant, whoever that's going through the treatment, feel understood, feel connected, feel like they have a strong relation. Our job is to make this person feel comfortable with us. And if you ever go to therapy and you're in session 2 or 3 and you're like, this person doesn't get me, I don't like this person, I don't want to be here, get a different therapist. We should rotate therapists like we rotate restaurants. If you don't like the food, go somewhere else. When you find a therapist or an executive coach or a life coach or whoever that really resonates with you, you're going to want to go back and talk with that person. And I think that to me is I think people just go, I'm going to go to therapy and suffer with this person that I don't really click with.
Exactly, and,
You
like,
know?
you're there to get the help you need, and so if it's
Yeah.
not, like, working out, you should immediately, like, change it like you would change your hairstylist, like,
I
"This is
really
for
think that that's
you, it's for you."
Yes, it's really right, and so you're going there, and now you're trying to make some guy feel, comfort you're just it's not
Right?
it's just a misuse of it, and so I wish
Yeah.
that when people struggle, they would go, "I need support, and I'm gonna meet with 3 people until I find the person that I really want to talk with."
Yeah, exactly, and people shouldn't view mental health as, like, an inconvenience, have to see a therapist. They should see it as something that's self-care and something that they absolutely deserve and have a right to.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
I agree
Well, thank you
100%.
yeah, exactly, and thank you so much for meeting with me, Dr. Colarossi. It was an amazing conversation.
Thank you for having me. It was great. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Of course. And thank you to the Psych2Go viewers for tuning in. You guys can see the links in the description. You can check out Dr. Colarossi's channel. You won't regret it. It's amazing work, amazing content. So please click onto that. Thank you guys. Have a great
Thank you.
day.
Good talking with you.